Esav loves Yaakov when he's Yaakov. Esav cannot deal with Israel. He can't stand Israel. Because Yaakov could be a partner that's a subordinate, right? Like the United States loves an Israel that's small and weak and dependent on the United States for weapons and for its economy and for its survival. An Israel that's independent and doesn't need the United States is threatening to the United States. And we see forces today in Western civilization, in the United States specifically, who are beginning to speak out. Not radical forces on the left, not revolutionary forces, but hardcore right-wing forces in American politics, right? What we'll call Amalek. If Esav is Western civilization, Amalek is the most self-aware militant subgroup of Esav. So right now we have a situation on the American right where you have this America First movement led by Nick Fuentes, right, who's saying something deeply true about the eternal conflict between Israel and Esav. He understands that. He's done enough opposition research to know that this is an ancient battle going back to the womb of Rivka between Israel and Edom, between Yaakov and Esav. And he puts this out there. And even though he's constantly asking, what does the United States get out of the relationship? And claiming that the United States actually gets nothing out of the relationship, and it's really just Zionist Jews who are hijacking US foreign policy in order to benefit Israel. He's also been recorded saying explicitly that what the United States gets from this is control. That it controls Israel, and it's actually an America First position to give Israel weapons and money because that's how the United States maintains its dominance. And that if Israel were to become independent, that would actually weaken the US and prevent Esav from controlling Yaakov. Now, even though Nick Fuentes is a very problematic individual, he's saying something deeply true about the relationship. And he's accusing the Zionist Jews on the American right of being dishonest in their dealings with the United States, as if they've been lying to the Americans, as if they've been lying to the Goyim, the Gentiles. But the truth is that those Jewish figures on the American right have not been lying to the Gentiles, they've been lying to themselves. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu has sent Nick Fuentes to call them out on their lie. You should understand him as a shliach. And how they and the Jews of the United States, especially the Jews who've been identifying with the Republican Party and the MAGA movement and conservative politics in general, how they respond to this will say a lot about them. You know, when Hitler, Yamach Shemo, came to power and began to pass laws against the Jews in Germany, the Rabbanim of Germany wrote letters to Hitler claiming, we are Germans. We fought for Germany in the Great War. We love Germany. Right? How do you not understand that we're Germans? Right? That's the reaction of a slave. Right? That's like a woman in an abusive relationship who doesn't have the internal independence to just leave that relationship. And that is the reaction of Ben Shapiro to Nick Fuentes, saying, we are Americans. right? And to be pro-Israel is to be pro-American. And to be pro-American is to be pro-Israel. It's a lie. You've been called out on the lie. Stop lying to yourself. And at a certain point, it's embarrassing. There is a deep, ancient conflict between Israel and Western civilization. It dates all the way to Yaakov and Esav. It dates all the way back to Sefer Bereshit and these Parshiot. But many Jews, right-wing Jews, have fallen into the trap of believing that they're part of some Judeo-Christian civilization at war with the Red-Green Alliance. That's the story they believe they're living in. There's Judeo-Christian civilization on the one side, and there's the Red-Green Alliance on the other, the Marxists and the Muslims on the other side. But there is no Judeo-Christian civilization. The real conflict is a conflict between Israel and Edom. And Edom is the fourth empire, right? The fourth empire that comes to stop Israel from fulfilling our mission in history and to take our place on the world stage as leader of humanity, right? All four empires can be identified by those two courses of action, attempting to stop Israel from fulfilling our role in history. Babylon tried to remove us from the land, right? We can't fulfill our purpose in history without being in the land. Persia tried to kill us completely, wipe us out. Greece sought to separate us from the Torah. And Rome, Edom, has tried all three in more concentrated form. And all four of these empires have also tried to take our place as the main character of history, as the leader of humanity. And now that Israel's come back to life in the modern age, the West feels extremely threatened. Right? There's a reason why the West has had a pathological obsession since the Six-Day War with forcing Israel to give up the lands we won in that war. Because that war was a biblical style miraculous event in the modern age that smashed the idol of Christianity and Christian dogma and validated, proved as correct the Jewish interpretation of Scripture. Right? And if Western civilization, subconsciously, right? I don't think that anybody in the Western capitals are thinking about this consciously, but I think on a very subconscious level, the drive is if we can make this event irrelevant, then it's historically meaningless. And how do we make it irrelevant? We force Israel to give up the land. Right? If Israel surrenders the land that we won in that miraculous war, then it doesn't mean anything. Nothing's changed. And the world can continue under the kind of liberal, Western-led world order, the post-World War II, American-led global order. But if this event means something, right? If this state of Israel is not just a bomb shelter for persecuted Jews, as the West insists it has to be, that's what Esav wants. Esav wants to support an Israel, a Yaakov, that is a weak little brother that needs me to protect him, that needs me to send him weapons, needs me to send him money, needs me to veto UN resolutions. That's a good partnership from the perspective of Esav. Esav likes that partnership because Esav is still then the main character. But Israel, right? An Israel that is actually the return of the biblical children of Israel to history, the characters from Tanakh come back to life in the modern age, that's insane. That's insane. Western civilization can't handle that. There are some Christians who've reformulated, recalibrated their theology in order to create space for that and support that. But for the most part, Western civilization as a collective cannot deal with the notion that the modern state of Israel is actually the characters in Tanakh come back to life. It's much easier to see it as a bomb shelter for persecuted Jews. Right? But when Amalek, which is again, Amalek is the most self-aware militant component of Esav, right? We can see Mein Kampf. Mein Kampf is Sefer Amalek. Right? It's the book of Amalek. Right? And the Nazis might not have had a complete awareness of exactly how Western civilization is being threatened by the Jews, but they knew that it was. They felt that it was. They knew it deeply, not through rational knowledge. Right? They knew it with emunah. Emunah is a level of understanding beyond rational logic. Meaning, if you blindfold me, and you give me chocolate ice cream and vanilla ice cream, I probably won't be able to find the words to tell you the difference between them. But I'll know deeply which one is chocolate and which one is vanilla. Right? It's not a rational thing. I just know. Right? That's the type of emunah that Amalek has in the threat that Israel poses to Western civilization, even if it doesn't understand how or why. Now, I would say that what Hitler was feeling was the result of the Jewish people coming back to Palestine. The Zionist movement. Right? That's what he was feeling. He was feeling something was changing. And remember that according to the nevuah of our ancestress Rivka, Edom and Israel represent two different civilizations that are constantly in conflict. When one is up, the other is down. Right? We can't simultaneously be dominant in the world stage. One is dominant, the other is subordinate. One is strong, the other is weak. And for the last roughly 2,000 years, Edom has been strong, and we've been weak. Right? They destroyed us. They didn't just destroy us. They destroyed a lot of peoples. But most importantly, they destroyed us. Right? They destroyed Jerusalem. They destroyed the Beit Mikdash. They destroyed our national framework. And then they proceeded to dominate most of the world for roughly 2,000 years. And all of that is falling apart today. Right? Western civilization is collapsing today. And I would argue that it's actually collapsing as a result of Israel's rebirth. That because Israel came back to our land, and because we attained independence in that land, and because we're in the process of developing and figuring out what kind of society we're going to create here and rebuilding Hebrew civilization, and are gearing up, we're preparing to take our rightful place as the leader of humanity, to lead humanity into a better world, into a better world order than the current one. Esav is collapsing. And Amalek knows it's the Jew.